My name is Eric Feldman, and I'm a marketing manager here at Automox. And presenting with me today is the incomparable Cody McDonald. Cody, why don't you say hello to everyone and tell everyone what you do here at Automox?
Hi, sure. Thanks, Eric. I'm Cody McDonald. I lead product management here at Automox. Couple of things about me. I'm local to Boulder, where Automox is headquartered, and I've been here for just over a year and a half. We've been working really hard on a lot of new things to make IT ops much simpler and scalable across organizations, and I'm really excited to be here to tell you about a couple of them.
Thank you so much, Cody. All right, so we're going to cover today just a few key broad topics. First, the challenges of IT operations, and there are several that we want to kind of point out to frame the conversation. And then we're going to turn it over to Cody, who's going to discuss enhancing your IT operations at scale. So let's take a quick peek at these challenges of IT operations. Now, if you're an IT professional, whether in operations or applications, network and systems, what have you, you have a challenging and demanding job. You have administrative overhead that sometimes turns into chaos when you have all these systems that need management in multiple locations. If you work in a large organization, you have many different lines of businesses and locations, and many of these business units may have their own local IT operations that leverage some shared services while supporting more localized systems. Often, you may rely upon multiple IT platforms and IT stacks, and these are systems and technology that may not necessarily have seamless methods of working together. That's a very, very common tale in enterprise IT. And when it comes to device management, many enterprise IT organizations must manage a dynamic and dispersed workforce, particularly these days with so many remote workers and some people going back, blended offices, some people staying remote permanently. Our workforces are dispersed and they're dynamic. And there's today an exponential number of remote locations, and add to that the BYOD, or bring your own device aspect, where people are plugging in their own devices to systems, and all these different system attributes you need to manage. And many IT operations professionals need to manage or need to leverage inflexible and inefficient legacy systems to manage all these constant changes. So it really becomes enough to keep you awake at night. That's the old saying with system administrators when they talk to a CIO, what keeps you awake at night? Because those challenges are really omnipresent across so many different organizations. Now, if all these operational challenges did not cause you enough stress, there's inherent risks that impact all of us. Cybercrime is big business today. I mean, it's huge business. Recent research from Cybercrime Magazine looked at total cybercrime costs, and they're expected to grow by 15% per year over the next 5 years. This is going to total over $10 trillion US annually by 2025. That's a staggering amount of money. Cybercrime is going to cost the global economy $10 trillion in just a few years. Now, the risk we all face is that criminals and bad actors can exploit and weaponize new critical vulnerabilities in an average of only 7 days. 7 days to weaponize a new critical vulnerability. According to industry data, the average organization needs 102 days to remediate a breach. And we have seen more recent surveys that indicate the average time for some organizations may be as high as 205 days to remediate critical vulnerabilities. Now, just think of that. That's 6 months or so where you may have potential exposure to cybercrime. Where you need to be to reduce risk and help protect your organization is really to dramatically reduce this window of exposure, the exposure to critical vulnerabilities, just like 90% of Automox customers do, who are able to harden their critical infrastructure typically within 1 day of an identified vulnerability. So that brings us to the time where I'm going to hand it off to Cody, and Cody is going to discuss enhancing your IT operations at scale. Cody, take it away.
Thanks. So let's see. Let's go ahead and dive in. So we have 4 new capabilities that I want to walk you through today, And the first one involves solving the pain point of organizing the administrative chaos that larger organizations typically face. And our answer to this need, we call it global zone management. So let's explore the complication a little bit. With global enterprises, IT operations is often just too extensive for one centralized team to manage. So responsibilities need to be delegated to more local teams. Different teams need to be able to manage different subsets of devices. So this centralized team needs to be able to delegate to these different teams across the business. There are different things you need to do from the local level. There are different things you need to be able to do from a middle management level across multiple zones, and still other things that you need to be able to do at a global level across all zones. And from an MSP perspective, you're providing a standard service globally, but tenants need to be able to manage their own domains, and you need to be able to keep those jurisdictions locked down from each other. And another thing that adds to complexity, as with any sort of zoning or jurisdictions, if you're crossing certain boundaries, many times regulatory issues come into play, such as GDPR in Europe or any other number of business-driven separation of duties or boundaries. So organizations need to be able to slice and dice these jurisdictions however they need for their business needs, whether that's obfuscating information that local admins don't need to see. This would involve cutting out noise and making it easier for them to manage the machines that they need to without having to sift through a whole global paradigm of data and devices, while also allowing those middle or regional admins to do their jobs effectively across a subset of zones that they need to manage, and still yet giving that centralized IT ops team full visibility and control across their entire fleet. So how do you deal with all of this administrative chaos with these complex hierarchies? Our new capability, Global Zone Management, allows exactly that. It makes administration easier even with complicated hierarchies. So we have a flash system where different permissions can be assigned to one zone, across multiple zones, or across all zones. So zones really enable the enterprise to have control over their immediate location, division, or subsidiary across any aggregation of zones or at the global level. So here's an example of what some roles in an organization might look like. For example, take Desiree here. You can see she's a zone admin across 2 different zones. So she's likely overseeing multiple teams. She's likely overseeing Omaha and Denver in this example. And as a zone admin in both of these zones, she can assign permissions to any of these zones or remove permissions as well. So if you look at Marcus, he's a patch admin in Omaha, but has read-only rights in Denver. So it's possible that Marcus is on Desiree's team. And as a zone admin in those 2 zones, she could have granted him these rights in her zones. But Bill, on the other hand, he has a function that you may want to permission vertically, meaning a very specific role that you want to administer globally, like a billing admin. So he's a billing admin across all 4 zones, and his rights were likely assigned to him by a global admin. And then lastly, you've got Taylor here on the right. She's a patch admin for both New York and Chicago. So she can manage patching across these 2 zones, but she does not have zone admin rights, so she can't assign or revoke permissions. So this simple example demonstrates the flexibility at which access and visibility can be granted across an organization. So the global zone management process is very simple. So 1, you have all your zones at your fingertips. So it's simple to see and configure them all in one place. And 2, from this page, you can create new zones in seconds. And 3, you can add users and permissions all in one step. And I want to dig in a little bit more here on permissioning. So we've built permissioning in a way that accelerates user onboarding. So you can not only add users to zones, But from a user perspective, you can add zones to a user. And what this means is instead of going into each zone that a user may need permissions to and adding them to each of these zones individually from a zone view, you can go the user route and you can open the user and assign multiple zones to that user with just a couple clicks. So what does global zone management give you? In summary, it gives you easy administration across all zones and users, simple delegation of roles and jurisdictions to zones or across multiple zones or across all zones, effortless onboarding from either the zone perspective or the user perspective, and efficient management where admins only see the devices that are relevant to their role. Next up, the next capability involves the pain point of having extensibility across different platforms, namely with EDR platforms. And our answer to this need, we call vulnerability sync. So here you have the intersection of two worlds. You have IT ops and SecOps. SecOps' job is to protect the environment. And while they're so good at detection, they don't always have the ability to remediate those threats that they find. Where IT ops' job is managing all of these devices, and they may not be aware of and probably are not hunting down all of those unknown vulnerabilities and threats. They can create patch policies, but there are times when vulnerabilities will inevitably find their way through even the most mature lattice work of policies. So you've got one side that can detect but not act, and the other side that can act but are not as good at detecting. So these two tech silos don't really do the best job of working together, right? Let's face it, in many large organizations, they're typically two totally separate teams. So vulnerability sync is a tool that bridges these two teams, and it ensures that they can work together seamlessly. IT ops can focus on that foundational level of policy and all of the other things they have on their plate. And SecOps can focus on hunting down the most critical threats at any given time. And then they can pass along these vulnerabilities to IT ops for remediation. So let's paint a picture. Before vulnerability sync, IT ops would create those foundational policies, and SecOps over here in their silo would be finding vulnerabilities that these policies wouldn't catch, using some sort of EDR tool or vulnerability management tool. Then SecOps would somehow have to get these one-off vulnerabilities to the IT ops team and then hope that they get taken care of. So IT ops would then receive these one-off vulnerabilities and would have to research them, prioritize them, and then somehow get them remediated outside of the standard policies that they're running. And it's challenging for them to prioritize these vulnerabilities. It's a very time-consuming process, and there's no repeatable workflow to make sure that it gets done. And then there's no closing the loop so that SecOps knows that the remediation actually ever happened. Now, with vulnerability sync, we now have a full cycle remediation workflow. When there are holes that SecOps finds, IT ops can immediately address those with a repeatable process. Whether that's 1 or 10,000 tasks at a time, they're able to quickly ingest those vulnerabilities directly into the platform and take action. No post-deployment actions. So it's a way to patch without a policy. Then we loop back around and give that critical visibility to the outcomes of those tasks so that that can be shared back out to the SecOps teams and provide that the work has actually been done and is complete. And overall, this increases security confidence. So the process before was to research, prioritize, correlate those packages to those devices, manually create policies, extract reports. Now you upload a report provided by SecOps in whatever EDR or vulnerability management tool they're using. And when you do that, you get a list of what's going to be patched on what devices in the Automox console. And if you're satisfied with that, then you just run it and the patches will go out. If you're not satisfied with that, then you simply only approve the CVEs that you do want to remediate, or you can go back and adjust that ingest report. It's simply a CSV file. So you can approve tasks from the adjusted report on a CVE basis. That's really what the task is. The CVEs are the tasks that you can approve for. So in summary, vulnerability sync is the fastest path to remediation and cyber resilience. Next up, the next capability involves the pain point of insufficient management of devices. These days, it seems impossible to support all of the nuance necessary in targeting specific devices for action. Our answer to this need is flexible device targeting. So, key benefit of Automox is giving users the ability to take actions on remote devices. And there are essentially two different types of actions. We've got manual and automated. And there's no secret, right? The more automated actions there are, the more efficient the organization becomes. And to turn manual actions into automated actions, we need predictability and the ability to capture it as a pattern. And what we've done with flexible device targeting is we're able to capture more patterns, thus increasing the automatability of these actions on devices. What was previously a manual process can now be an automated process. So let's look at what policies do. Policies identify what actions to take, which devices to take the action on, and when to execute for each policy. So you've got these three pieces to policy: the action, the target, and when. Flexible device targeting is focused on that target, or which devices in the policy. It allows you to target actions to devices based on specific device attributes. So now you can get much more nuanced than targeting your typical device groups would allow. So you would be able to do this without having to select each device individually. So you can target devices by their attributes now. So here's a couple of examples of how you can target devices flexibly by device attribute. Excuse me. So you can now target by hostname. You can target your devices by operating system version, IP address. You can target by tags, and you can also target your devices by Active Directory organizational units or Active Directory OUs. And we also released a complementary capability of bulk tagging. And this really complements flexible device targeting in that, let's say you're in the console and you want to really filter down the devices page to a specific set of devices that you want to take action on. So you can filter and really slice and dice down to the exact group, the exact subset of devices you want to take action on. And then you can bulk tag those devices with whatever tag you want to, and then use that tag with flexible device targeting to take action on that very specific subset of devices. So with flexible device targeting, this is something that we're evolving over time. It's already been through a couple evolutions, and we've added a couple new functionalities to it already. So we're always looking for feedback on more attributes by which you would like to target your devices, or specific use cases by which you would like to target your devices. So feel free to throw those into the chat box or to get a hold of us. And we're always open to learning how you would like to target your devices. So the benefits of flexible device targeting: it creates fewer manual tasks, and that kind of goes back to increasing the amount of automation. It reduces the amount of duplication required in policies, targeting multiple attributes at once, which reduces the need for creating multiple policies to do the same thing. And then more flexible deployments. Instead of having to select lots of individual devices or groups for those zero-day patches, you can target those devices that are truly critical. One example of that might be perhaps you would like to avoid the sales team and not interrupt any important or critical sales demos. This is just one example. So some other use cases that we've actually seen, we've actually witnessed customers using flexible device targeting for. One utilizes our recently added tag. And so this is targeting new devices. So Automox has this recently added tag that we automatically add to any devices that you've added to Automox recently, and it lasts for 5 days. And so you can use that recently added tag to create a policy and run it every Friday to take action on all your newly added devices. So whether that be you wanted to patch all the newly added devices or add a specific kind of software or change some kind of configuration and you want to make sure to get all of the newly added devices, that's what this use case is around. Another one is a C-suite specific use case. So you could create a C-suite specific policy. For example, maybe without any reboots or notifications, or maybe that run on Saturdays to minimize the disruption to that particular group. A couple other use cases. We had one customer who had temporary projects. So this customer had a temporary project group get spun up to do a very specific task, which required specific software for that project. And these policies allowed those users to be tagged to A, install the project-specific software, and B, remove that software, the same software, a few months down the road when it's no longer needed. Flexible device targeting has also been used for pre-patch worklets, where it facilitated a server group to take certain actions take certain actions on a specific type or subset of servers before the patching actually happened. So not all the servers needed that specific validation, but they were able to able to target the specific servers that did, and they were able to accommodate that flexibly. So in summary, flexible device targeting allows automation with precision and allows simplified IT workflows. Third up, we have extensibility across different platforms, ITSM and SIEM, security information and event management. And our answer to this one is a Splunk and ServiceNow integration. So we have a growing family of integrations, both Automox built and third-party built. And so obviously the Automox built integrations are supported and maintained by Automox, and the third-party built integrations are supported and maintained by the vendors who create them. We have this really powerful API and are continuously improving our SDK. And with this, our third-party integrations are growing rapidly, and we're expecting more by the end of the year. So we're going to talk about some of the Automox built integrations today, specifically around ServiceNow and Splunk. So for ServiceNow, within ServiceNow, their main bread and butter is their ITSM for incident, problem, and change management. And a subcategory of that is IT asset management. And that ensures that IT assets are tracked and maintained. And then underneath that is configuration management database, or CMDB. And this is where we provide our value. We provide automated updates of detailed device information. And by this, we can improve asset management, ultimately saving time with automated updates and by making better decisions with more complete and accurate information. This also reduces cost by way of consolidated vendor footprint. So if you're using another tool to enrich this data, now you can bring in this information. We can bring in this information for you at no additional cost. And an increase in asset utilization with some of the fields that we bring in. So this is currently in a limited beta right now, but we're bringing in and auto-updating over 50 fields into the service graph. So now you can integrate all these device details into your existing processes. And now you can see how the use cases would just be endless. And so with Splunk, this integration involves enriching Splunk data with Automox data, adding in Automox device details, policy details, and a log of console events, the actual actions happening in the Automox application. And this integration involves bringing those in and indexing them with Splunk so they can be used within Splunk Enterprise or Splunk Cloud. These are user-driven, and the best use cases will be from using our data in conjunction with other data from within Splunk. The value we bring here is increasing data visibility, which should lead to better decisions, and pulling our data into the source of truth, which is Splunk. And this will help facilitate faster decisions with no need to cross-reference different platforms. And overall, by having more information, this should lead to better security outcomes. So as far as Splunk goes, we do have two different apps in the App Store. One is the ETL, the ETL app, which is the Automox technology add-on for Splunk. And then we have the Visualize piece, which is the Automox dashboard for Splunk. Now, the Automox dashboard visualizes very specifically just the Automox data. And the ETL app is required to use this Visualize piece. So you need them both to get the dashboard. But with the ETL app, you can create your own dashboards that involve visualizing more than just Automox data. You can get that compilation and integration of data across your platform. So in conclusion, IT operations at scale need all of these tools. You need global zone management to manage administrative hierarchies. You need vulnerability sync to work well with with SecOps teams and stay as secure as possible. You need flexible device targeting to efficiently and flexibly manage how devices are patched and managed. And you need integrations to integrate the rest of your organization so that more than just your own team can have access to the data from Automox. And with that, we have reached Q&A.
All right. Thank you, Cody. I appreciate the detail you've gone through with all our new capabilities. And everybody, it's time to ask questions. We do have some that are queuing up right now, and we'll go through a few of those. So go ahead and get your question in. And we're going to start with one here. For flexible device targeting, can we use a hostname pattern? For example, SRV for all devices with that in the hostname. And I can take that one on because I've tested this myself. And with flexible device targeting, when you go by hostname, the wildcard is I think the word is implicit. In other words, if you just put in SRV, it'll pick up all host names with that in there. And a great use case for this is if you have a host name schema or taxonomy throughout your organization. So for example, a host name that is CA, OT, DB, DB01, 01. For example, that would mean a Canadian server in Ottawa that's used for database server number 1. So if you wanted to target just database servers, you'd put in DB, and if you wanted to target just Ottawa servers, you'd put in OT, et cetera, and so on. So the answer is yes. yeah, we can use that. We can target the host name by using wildcards and patterns like that. Next one, I'm going to ask Cody for this. Global zone management, when will this be available?
Sure. So global zone management is targeted to release next week for new users. And then a week or two after that, we will release the capability to do this with existing users. And this first capability will involve the ability to basically permission roles and zones to users.
Okay, thank you. Next here, about flexible device targeting. Will this be part of our API?
I believe so. I believe that you can do flexible device targeting through the API, but I am certainly checking on that one.
Okay. What about vulnerability sync? What EDR vendors do we work with currently and in the future?
Well, this really isn't locked down. As far as vulnerability sync goes, you can potentially use any EDR or vulnerability management tool that can export a CSV file with the correct data. Really, all you need is a CSV with the CSV numbers and host names and formatted in the proper way, and you just feed it right into Automox. It's essentially just uploading a text file. To be honest, you don't even need another tool. If you have a CVE that you want to remediate, you just create the CSV and you feed it into Automox.
Interesting. That's a lot of people don't see that because with flexible device targeting, in theory, I suppose, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but in theory, we can integrate with just about anybody as long as we can get an export with a CSV file in, with those two attributes, so those two definitions that we need, those two columns, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Another question. Within the Automox policy system, when we're using flexible device targeting, what type of policies can we use flexible device targeting with?
So again, there's no limit there. You can use flexible device targeting with any of our policies. Patch policy, required software policy, workload policy. So really you can use it to automate just about any action across any device. Okay.
What about ITSM vendors? What do we currently work with now, and do we have any plans for additional vendors in IT service management?
Sure. So currently, specifically for ITSM, we have integrations with ServiceNow and with Freshworks. And we are always looking to expand our integration partners, though, and we are looking to add more in the next few quarters, ITSM and beyond.
Okay. Here's a question about one of our partnership. If you can answer this, Tenable. We mentioned Tenable on one of the slides. What's our partnership with Tenable?
Sure. So with Tenable, the idea is that you can extract those CVEs. You can extract those vulnerabilities and then ingest them into Automox via that vulnerability sync. We are continuing to look for a deeper partnership with Tenable in the future, but at this time, you can use them with the vulnerability sync.
Okay, great. And we only got a couple more here, so if anyone has questions, please go ahead and enter them. Here's one. How many attributes can we target in a policy?
I'm how many out? Oh, that would be 10.
Oh.
So as far as the number of attributes we can target in a policy with flexible device targeting, you can target up to 10 attributes or 10 filters. And we have different operands you can actually use too. Some of them are additive and others are exclusionary. So it's not just 10 attributes, but even you can include, you can omit things by certain attributes as well. And also to clarify, it doesn't only work with patch policies, but it works with any kind of policy.
Okay, so for example, if we wanted to target all Mac devices in a specific with a specific host name pattern, we can do that, right? We can just multiply the additional attributes in the what we're filtering on or what we're targeting on, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I believe also, you'd have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we can have multiple attributes within one. So, for example, if we want to target a specific host name pattern, we can I think put more than 2 in that field, right? We can, and
Yes.
we'll pick up both. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So the example SRV and then space 1, 2, 3, and we'll pick up host names with both of those, with both of those patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
We're
You
getting
can
a couple.
actually, I mean, you could actually, if you wanted to, you could apply up to 10 different filters specifically around a host name or what have you.
So there's a, I think the key use case is, well, the key benefit here is you just get an enormous degree of precision in what you can target throughout the enterprise.
Yes, absolutely.
Here's a question about another partner question about CrowdStrike. How do we partner with CrowdStrike?
Sure. So with CrowdStrike, it's very similar to the Tenable story in that you can go into CrowdStrike and use their tools to identify vulnerabilities, and then you can export those and import those directly in Automox and basically use your CrowdStrike information to remediate immediately within Automox.
Okay, we got 2 more here, and we've got a few more minutes for questions, so if anyone has them, now is the time. Question about vulnerability sync. Is this available today, right now?
Yes.
Okay, so vulnerability sync is live and it's available to any current user. Okay, great.
Yes.
And there's the last question we have. Can we walk through a deployment? And I think the answer to that is that we offer one. You could sign up for a demo on our website. We're happy to walk you through it. And number 2, you could sign up for a 15-day free trial, so you can actually just try it out for yourself, because it's quite easily to set up and get going. So in literally minutes, you can install an agent and start patching right away. So you can test that out in your environment. Anything to add about that, Cody?
No, I did want to loop back though to a prior question. Is flexible device targeting usable from the API? And I had thought that the answer was yes, but the answer is definitively yes. You can use flexible device targeting through the API.
Okay, great. Here's a question. This is a functional question. I like the question. I don't know if it's necessarily out of subject, as the attendee said, but is there any way to block a Windows 11 upgrade?
I believe that there is an exclusionary, but I would have to double check on that one.
Yeah.
Another thing that you could do for these more tactical questions is we do have an office hours that you can also attend. Those are much more low-level tactical questions as well.
Yeah, and the next office hours session, it's held the first Thursday of every month. The next one is November 4th, and you get to hear me again. I'll be hosting that particular event, and you can ask just about any question about Automox or general IT questions if we can help you with that. It's an open forum for you, our audience, for people thinking about adopting Automox or existing customers, where it's our time to help you. We may not be able to help you answer questions such as what is the meaning of life, but if it regards Automox or any sort of associated technology, we're more than happy to help you if we can. And if we can't, we'll get back to you with the right answer offline. I think that covers just about all our questions. So I think we're up to the end of our time today. So what I'd like to do is thank Cody for all her hard work and all the people behind the scenes that you don't see that work so hard here at Automox to bring you great content and help deliver all the different things that we work on. So thank you to Lauren and Taylor and Alicia and everyone else. On behalf of everyone at Automox, all of us, we really appreciate your time. We're here to help you solve some of your complex IT challenges. That's what we work every day very hard to do. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to working with everyone once again real soon. Have a great day, everyone.